Let's move on to the T, because social currency was one part. T is triggers, and I like this section a lot. Triggers. In fact, I love this section. my phrase, and it's all about getting people to trigger their response when it comes to buying a product or service, or getting some kind of trigger for people to buy that product or service. And there was a few different examples that they used, and I liked all of them, to be honest. But let's start with the healthy eating slogan on a dinner tray, because they had students. They wanted to encourage students to eat more fruit, and they were thinking of ways to encourage students to eat more fruit. Putting signs up, eat more fruit, didn't do the job. So what they did was they managed to get a trigger. They linked the food tray with a slogan. So on that food tray, they put "eat your fruit" or something. They put something like "eat more fruit" or whatever on the food tray. So now every time they've gone to get the food tray for their lunch, they can see that it says "eat more fruit." But not only that, if the slogan wasn't there, they've now associated that slogan with a food tray. So regardless of whether the slogan's there or not, every time they grab a food tray, they're now thinking, "Oh, fruit," because they've managed to link that slogan with the tray. And this managed to increase fruit eating amongst students, which I found incredible. And I was just thinking about other things. This really got my brain ticking. It's like, how can I trigger the people's thoughts to maybe book in on some of my services, or even go to your gym? What can we link to encourage people? Okay, these are the actions that I need to take.
I think that's what I liked about, you're going to naturally think about your business when reading this book. You're going to think, straight away as we were reading this, I was thinking, okay, how can I get this? And then you see it's like how it could be the slightest thing, and some of the things I think you don't even have control over, even talking about yourself and talking about like with our where we are, but it's environmental. So there's environmental triggers. I think you could it'd be easier to create those triggers within our own social groups, or within, obviously, via our networks that we have. But then on a wider level, like for bigger organizations, I know they said in the book they gave the example of something to do with Mars. I don't remember what it was.
Kit Kat. Was it Mars or Kit Kat?
No, it was Mars. Where I don't know if it was an invite. It was something about where they started speaking about traveling to Mars or getting. No, I think it was the first satellite to orbit Mars or something like that. Something to do with Mars. And then at the same time, the sales of Mars bars went up.
Okay,
because obviously Mars is in the media all the time, you know. And to be honest with you, I never even knew until I read this book. I never knew why Mars was called Mars. I always thought it was to do with the planet, but obviously it's the name of the person that made that. That was the. I mean, it was quite interesting for me. But yeah, so that's why sometimes Mars bar didn't name their chocolates in order to kind of leverage off the planet Mars, but now they've managed to, whether it was a satellite or whatever, someone correct me what the reason was why Mars was in the news so heavily, but that led to their sales increasing for that. Yeah. So that's like an environmental one.
Yeah, and it's also out of your control. It's also out of your control. There were a few others that I wanted to touch on briefly as well, because I don't know if you remember the bath mat trigger. So I'll paint the story that I got from the book, and there was two things that I loved about this. One, because it caused the trigger, but two, because the trigger didn't work. And I'll explain it as I go through. So picture this: a hot woman, they get out of a hot steamy shower separately, different showers. And then as the man steps out of the shower, he slips and cracks his head and blood everywhere. So that's something that is quite scary, something that you might think. Now, every time you get out of the shower, you might think, okay, because of that advert, I need to make sure that I'm careful getting out of the shower. I don't want to crack my head like the advert. And in fact, the author actually said every time he gets out of the shower, he actually thinks about that advert. And it was advertising bath mat.
Yeah.
And this would make anyone think, oh yes, I need to get a bath mat. And it certainly would make me think that, yes, I need to get a bath mat. But the issue at that time is you're in the shower. You can't buy a bath mat right in the shower. You're not necessarily just going to grab your phone and buy a bath mat there and then.
Yeah.
So by the time you've got dressed and dried and everything, you've forgotten about it. So that trigger, although it triggered the thought of it, it didn't trigger the action for people to actually go and buy bath mats.
Mr. Fly and I are always dropping gems. And to watch the full episode, click here. Or for some more snippets and some more gems, click here. Peace.